What's going on, guys? Andrew of New York Gaming back here, and today we're going to be talking some Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains episode 80. Now, this concludes our two-episode duel between Blood Shepherd and Lightning, and it actually only ends up lasting another turn or two because there's a lot of combos going on here. Lightning's deck, we get to see how that interacts a little bit more, and I think it's turning out to be a pretty interesting archetype on the whole. Essentially, it's based around the idea of being able to bring out these Link monsters, and then your normal monsters that you get from the deck that still have effects, they aren't like normal monsters in a strict speaking sense, they then are able to gift effects to the Link monsters who point to them. And he's able to use this to create basically a solid defense system. We're basically seeing the classic sword versus shield battle here. Lightning setting up a defense, and then we've got, Blood Shepherd trying to take it down. And of course, Blood Shepherd does eventually end up losing, but a couple things that I want to point out about Lightning's deck as well is he seems to be solidifying the pattern that we see that these Ignises only use Link summoning when it comes to pulling out monsters from the extra decks, and their ace monsters are always based around Link summoning. Something that's just like kind of a little detail I noticed. And Lightning also seems very intrigued about facing a synchro summon and a fusion summon for the first time. He comments on both of them within this duel. He did see synchro summoning before when he watched Windy duel Revolver, but he never faced it one-on-one. Part of this leads me to believe that maybe the next time we see Lightning duel, he'll pull out synchro summoning for the first time, and the way we've kind of built up the fact that these AIs don't use non-Link summoning mechanics to pull monsters out of the extra deck. Maybe he's going to do it for the first time. It's going to pull them out of a rut, and then we're going to see these these two factions go closer to each other in terms of tactics and such. We've already seen a little bit of that in that like Soul Technologies is one of the people in the mix, and they've already started to combine like humans and AIs essentially in what we see in Go Onizuka. They're trying to learn from Playmaker's faction. We've seen Lightning try to learn from Playmaker's faction in that he's got essentially Bowman is his version of a hybrid between a human and AI, and they're basically just both trying to find a way to copy the relationship that's shared between the human and their AI counterparts from the Lost Incidents, such as the relationships between like Soulburner and Flame, and then Yusaku and I, and then to some extent Aoi and Aqua, right? And they're just trying to replicate this and replicate that power. So I'm wondering if the next step for the AIs in this process is going to be using these other summoning methods. We've already seen Go do that for Soul. Maybe that's the next step for them, especially considering Lightning's pointed out how outnumbered he is. He's going to need every new weapon in his book. Although the fact that he manages to outperform the board that our good old friend Blood Shepherd manages to set up here is pretty darn impressive. Blood Shepherd manages to get a 5,000 attack monster on board, and Lightning just wipes it out like it's nothing. He even negates Link arrows for a second time and blocks the effect of one of the Link markers. I mean, now if we're talking competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, that's not the greatest board in the world, but we are talking about a simplified game state at the same time here. Both players were down to fewer cards in their hand, had their board set up, etc., etc. Blood Shepherd, especially by all anime intensive purposes, should have had this duel in his hands with that board. So we're seeing Lightning just prove how powerful he truly is. He talks about looking forward to the next duel against the humans and how they're going to be next. So he seems very confident, very unfazed. Seemed like he never truly lost control of that duel in his eyes. He seemed amused by how good of an offense Blood Shepherd is able to put up, but never fearful. Now, perhaps that is just Lightning's personality. He doesn't seem to ever really show a lot of fear towards humans, but maybe that's just because he hasn't felt a cause to do so yet. I mean, even, Revolver is pointing out just how threatening of an opponent he may be, being able to overcome Blood Shepherd's skills in this duel, which really shined through. I mean, he managed to bend around several of Lightning's tricks. I mean, Lightning essentially was giving us like a new defensive ability every time Blood Shepherd managed to attack him. Whether that was destroying a monster, whether that was blocking direct attacks, which is one of the primary strategies Blood Shepherd's deck uses. Speaking of which, Lightning never saw that deck beforehand in action, and now he's doing it. Although I suppose it is possible he might have watched a duel Blood Shepherd did based on the monitors. At least on screen, he never watched one of those duels, and Blood Shepherd seems, at least in my eyes, to probably only have relatively recently come under the radar of Lightning. Now, once more, it's possible he saw a duel beforehand, but getting back to my previous point, Lightning, he manages to like have attack stopping abilities, have direct attack stopping abilities, have monster destruction abilities. Blood Shepherd just plays all through this, whittles him down to 200 life points, and sets up this huge board with negates and such. Lightning just plows right through it. It's kind of a sad story in my eyes, considering I think they really did a good job building up Blood Shepherd these past couple of episodes, but in some ways I also think that's good writing. See, Blood Shepherd here essentially served as a token in order to show to us how powerful Lightning truly is. That way there's a little bit more of that impact when our protagonists do eventually come to like, essentially best him in a duel, right? So in order to build that, you need a pretty significant duelist to do so. A lot of times in past Yu-Gi-Ohs, our token loser, a lot of times it's just been a character that we haven't seen win a lot on screen. And yeah, Blood Shepherd we haven't seen win really on screen either, except against Emma, whose track record on screen is equally as terrible. But we were given some time to really get attached to him. We saw him dramatically improve his dueling abilities here, and essentially we saw him get redeemed. So even if this wasn't the best win for Lightning in order to prove how powerful he is, it was an impactful loss for us to witness, especially at the end when Emma goes up to her brother and seems really disappointed at the fact that she knows or not even just disappointed, basically distraught, as she should be, about the fact that her brother is going to be turned into essentially a mindless drone for Lightning to control, or as we saw here, Data, whichever he ends up deciding to do with him. She's distraught over that fact, but she finds out Blood Shepherd decided to go on his own because he didn't want to put Emma in danger. He basically rejected Revolver's offer, probably because he didn't fully trust him. But Emma, remember last episode, went to Blood Shepherd seeking his help as well, explaining, hey, we're in a little bit of a bind here ourselves. You're one of the best hackers I know. You're a powerful duelist. Maybe you can work alongside us. We have a common enemy right now. Blood Shepherd turns her down because he wants to handle the situation so his sister doesn't have to. His final lines are, it's a brother's job to protect his sister. And with all the character development we've gotten over these past 3 or 4 episodes, so far I think this is the only time I've really felt a whole lot of an impact when I've seen one of our main characters lose in Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains. So once more, these writers I think are really turning the show around a lot for me, with that being the case. And I'm hoping we'll be able to see Blood Shepherd again before the show runs out, and see him actually do some things, especially now he's turned the tide. I think he would be a really cool anti-hero type to come in and help, like Playmaker and Soulburner and Owie from time to time here and there. Hard to say exactly what route they'll go for him if he does come back, but it's Yu-Gi-Oh! They rarely permanently kill off characters. Now, while we're on the topic of Blood Shepherd's death here, this would have had a pretty major impact on Emma as what we saw, and if the episode preview for next time wasn't showing basically Yusaku's going to duel Go Onizuka, I almost would have said that it seemed likely Emma was just going to pick up her duel disc and challenge Lightning right there. I mean, Lightning probably would have went for it. He would have seen it as an opportunity to pick another one of his foes off, or unless he has some other big scheme. He did seem kind of in a hurry to get out of there, probably to use the data from Blood Shepherd for whatever he's going to use it for. But still, I could have seen her really getting angry by this. I think we're going to see a newer and more dedicated Emma than ever to the fight, now that she's got more of a purpose to fight. Before it was sort of like, Link Vrains is in trouble, my sort of protege and Owie is really taking up this cause, and Akira even seems somewhat suspicious and he's a reliable client, maybe I'll go with this side. But now she's seeing her own brother get taken down. The main family that we've even seen her show any contact towards, one of the few people that she seems close with, really just starting to get close with, I should say, really just gets destroyed and turned into Data. That's not right. I think we're going to see a new Emma, and I really hope Emma has a significant win at some point in this arc, because I think she's a neat character that hasn't gotten quite the justice she deserves on screen yet. I mean, my fear is, and this is what I also believe is most likely, is she'll be another token loss to build up our main antagonist here. I mean, just like we had several token losses for Merrick, essentially, within Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters. A lot of ties to Merrick I'm seeing here. I mean, we saw him, we know off-screen he beat plenty of people, but then we see him overcome Mai, he overcomes Joey, he likely would have beaten Kaiba based on the simulator that was run, etc., etc. He also takes down Bakura. None of those characters were particularly good duelists on screen with the exception of Joey. I could see Lightning running a very similar route. Maybe we watch, either Soulburner or Revolver go down to him right before Playmaker faces him, or something like that before the end of this arc. Now, while we're connecting things to Duel Monsters, I'd also like to point out how, Lightning's whole manipulation and essentially possession of Jin is very, very similar to how Merrick used to possess his enemies with the Millennium Rod, puppeteer them around, allow them to take damage. I mean, we see Kusanagi reacting to the fact that he's watching his brother essentially absorb these attacks for Lightning within Link Vrains with his body, right? That's more or less what Merrick used to do. I mean, remember the character Strings, who wielded Slife of the Sky Dragon before Yugi got it? He was taking all the intensity of that duel for Merrick, so that way Merrick could try and take down the Pharaoh, right? So A lot of similarities there. I'm not necessarily against it, and I would imagine most of the fan base wouldn't necessarily be against it either, considering Merrick is generally considered one of the more liked villains, and a lot of people really like the Battle City arc, as do I, looking back in retrospect. But on the whole, guys, I thought this was a pretty good episode. We're all lined up for Go versus Yusaku next time, and the Go Onizuka that we see in the episode preview at the end here seems a lot more withered away and weakened and battered than he was last time. I mean, he's got all kinds of dark lines under his eyes. He even seems a little bit thinner. I'm thinking he's really went off the deep end at this point. Apparently he's not obeying anybody, including those in Soul Technologies. At least that's the way the episode preview is writing it off, showing images of the Queen, and then within Soul Technologies itself, while Go's kind of doing his thing. So we can assume Yusaku's really going to have to whip some shape into him. Maybe he's going to defeat him, then he's going to kind of make him unconscious, try and remove the AI from him, or something along those lines. I would really like to see Go come along and join our main protagonists in order to fight alongside them to face Lightning and that type of thing. I honestly wouldn't even mind watching like Lightning face several of these guys at once and just be like one of those big bads, sort of like Don Thousand was in Zexal when we saw Shark, Shark and Yuma team up against him, and to some extent Kite. Or even when Kite's father was faced, you had Shark, Kite, and Yuma all facing him at once. I wouldn't necessarily mind that, especially if they do it right, handle it right, and if they follow it up with like something else. Regardless, I'm thinking this arc is going pretty well, guys. I think we're starting to see our heroes pin up sides, and I'm thinking after this Go duel is when we're going to really start to see the main conflict unfold. Sort of like I mentioned in the last review, a lot of times Yu-Gi-Oh! Likes to use the death of a character that is tied to the main party but isn't necessarily a big part of it to act as a catalyst towards, progression for the show and getting that main conflict to finally come to its head. And I think Blood Shepherd might have been that for us. If not, I would say Emma might be next on the list. I have a feeling she may go seeking revenge for her brother. I'm just hoping we get to see some good action for Emma. As usual, guys, be sure to let me know your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if not, constructive criticism is always welcome. And I'll catch you guys next time with some more Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains content.